everyone, and welcome back to my personal channel. I hope you're doing well. It's a Saturday morning right now, and I just wanted to sit down and talk to you about one habit that I've had for the last almost 4 years now, and it's been one of the best habits that I've picked up. And I want to talk about some of my habits in the coming months that I find really valuable. Now, this habit in particular that I'm talking about is my reading 52 books a year habit. So that, obviously, if you do the math, equates to one book every week. And this doesn't really seem like that crazy of a goal in my own head, and I've maintained the habit fairly easily. Actually, this is the only year in the last like 3-4 years that I'm in danger of not hitting my 52 mark. I kind of have to do a lot of reading to catch up. I'm only at 30 books right now, but that being said, 30 books is still pretty good, so I don't want to begrudge that too much. The reason that I decided to talk to you about this today is because it's been brought to my attention that maybe this isn't like the most usual, typical habit that people have. When I was out with friends at my birthday party, and I mentioned just kind of offhand that I read 52 books a year, they were kind of like, what? Making fun of me a little bit. And the same thing happened with a different group of people. So I was like, okay, I actually have to like sit down and talk about this because, you know, not a lot of people are reading so many books. And I want to talk about why I like to do that and why I think it's so valuable. The big reason that got me started with this is when you read about successful people, you'll come across this often. It's a pretty common denominator with people who are high achievers, is that they read a lot of books. And the number differs, but like in general, it's kind of like reading a book a week is like a minimum for highly successful people, including, you know, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and etc. They all talk about how reading is a crucial thing to keep their minds active and engaged. So over the years, I've kind of been curious about incorporating habits of successful people into my own life because I want to be a successful person too. Maybe not on the same level as Bill Gates, but still, if it's a habit that's good enough for him, then it should be good enough for me too. So that was what got me started with it. I wanted to emulate these really successful people. Now, I don't read a book a week. I aim for 52 books a year. And the difference is some weeks I'll read like 2 or 3 books. Maybe I have like several on the go. And then some weeks I'll finish 0. So I don't like to give myself the weekly pressure, like, oh, gotta get this book finished by the end of the week. I don't like that deadline. And I find that my reading goes in ebbs and flows. Sometimes I'm really into the audiobooks and I'll devour a whole bunch of books in like a couple months because of that. Other months I'm kind of like, I don't know, maybe just like not feeling it, or maybe I'm reading more articles, things like that, and I don't read as much. So anyway, I just want to clarify, even though it works out to a book a week, I don't read a book a week. It's like sometimes 10 a month, sometimes 0 a month. It just kind of varies. The other reason that I wanted to get into this habit was more personal. It's just that I really like reading. I find value in it. And I don't have like a specific goal with what I read. It's more just that I read. So because of that, I read a wide variety of genres. I read personal development books, and when my brain's feeling fried, I'll read some fiction. I really like a broad range of fiction series. I like classics, I like fantasy, I like, you know, contemporary fiction. Like all of that is good for me. I'm in a book club, and that keeps me reading different genres too. I also, what else do I like to read? I actually think that probably covers most of it. I like reading about health and nutrition. That's another big one. Certain science-related books, but like not too sciencey. But yeah, like a pretty equal 50-50 mix of fiction and nonfiction. And at any given time, I probably have 3 or so books on the go. I'll usually have 1 audiobook on the go that I listen to when I'm doing. Audiobooks are a great way to read if you're not able to sit down and read also. Just because I like to do them when I'm out for walks and sometimes when I'm doing chores as well. I used to be able to listen to a lot more audiobooks, but now that I have a baby, it's like I've listened to like 4 audiobooks this year, and the year's almost over, so it's just a lot harder to find time to listen with a baby. But I also want to bring that up because since I have a baby, I have an 8-month-old. That's part of the reason that I haven't read as much this year. But I've still read 30 books so far this year, and I am hoping to see if I can, you know, have a couple of really strong months to finish out the year. I feel like people like to say, oh, I don't have time to read and things like that. It's like, you don't know time crunches until you're a working stay-at-home parent. It's like, I really don't have that much time. But I find pockets to read at night. I think when I put the baby down, when I'm kind of like laying in bed, or when I'm nursing her, I'll sometimes read. I did a lot of reading earlier when she was a newborn that way, just because we were nursing all the time. And yeah, just like when she goes down for a nap, I'll find 5-10 minutes here or there to read. And it usually adds up to, like, I can usually patch together about an hour a day to read, just through like 5-10 minutes here or there. So if you have like a more luxurious free time lifestyle, I'm sure you could find the time to read. An hour a day is all it takes to read about a book a week, depending on how big the books are. But like the standard, 200-300 page book is going to take you like 5 to 7 hours to read. So it works out. It's just like the really dense books take a lot longer, but most books that we're going to read are like, 600 page tomes. We're not always going to be reading A Song of Ice and Fire. So the benefits of reading this many books, it always keeps my mind fresh with new ideas. One of the criticisms with reading a lot of books is, well, if you read so many books, how do you even remember what you've read? And that's partly a true criticism. If I were to only read 1 or 2 books a year and like really like nonfiction and really applied like all of the concepts, that would be one way to live your life. But the reason that I like to have so many ideas, even if I don't like, not memorize, but like, even though I don't like completely internalize all of the content, is because it just keeps my mind going like this, and it helps me form connections with things that I wouldn't think about. So if I read, I'll try to bring that back down to earth with an example. So if I read about, I read the Red Queen series recently, and that's just like a fantasy fiction woman power series. And then I go and read a health book about, longevity. And then I go and read a book about how to have your best year ever, which I just finished. It's actually a book. And just like drawing from all these different sources in my daily life, it just gives me different things to think about, like on a day-to-day basis. So if I'm spending a week reading one book, Your Best Year Ever, then I'm spending a week thinking about how to have a really great year. And then maybe the next week I'm reading a book about nutrition, and then I'm spending a week like really thinking about nutrition. And I find just like broadening my scope like that and keeping like constant fresh input helps me just stay motivated in life in general. It helps me feel interesting. It doesn't make me interesting, but I feel interesting. I don't know if I can make that make sense. I have things to talk about at the dinner table with my husband. I feel like I'm able to just learn more about the world that way. Now, the big thing, and I've had discussions with my husband about this because he's not a reader, and we often talk about the difference between books and articles, and he's a big proponent of articles. He reads a lot of like online articles and stuff like that, and I used to. I've kind of scaled back on that, and the reason is well, there's a couple of reasons. Online articles are often written quickly, often by people who aren't experts. A lot of articles, especially if you're reading on Reddit and things like that, are by, college educated people, like intelligent people. But books, on the other hand, are often crafted over the course of months, and there's so much more care and attention put into them. They're a lot more deep, and a lot of the times the authors are more knowledgeable than what you'll find in articles. That's not like always true. You can get crappy books just like you can get fantastic articles, but articles are generally like satisfying to the ADD part of us that just want to like flip from one thing to the next. But books really require a lot more attention, and that attention is something that I feel like I really want to deliberately cultivate in my life, because in the kind of world we're living in, it's just like the social media thing where like I notice if I'm on my phone, I'm like spending 2 minutes on email, and then I'm spending 2 minutes on whatever, and then 2 minutes on it, and I'm just like constantly darting around, and you get addicted to that. I'm sure there's like science behind that. I think by constantly tapping into these things, going to my Instagram feed, whatever, you're releasing dopamine in the brain. You're getting that like reward circuitry, whatever. I'm not a science person, but to get away from that, I feel like I feel like all of that flitting around, it doesn't really do much for our mind. And at the end of the day, I'm not remembering anything. And I can spend weeks and months just kind of like flitting from one thing to the other without having anything to show for it, without any mental growth. And I find digging into books takes so much more attention, that cultivating that attention means that I have more attention in my day-to-day life too. I can sit and focus on, you know, having a conversation with friends, or just in general, I can be more comfortable sitting with my baby without feeling the need to do things all the time. I feel like concentration and focus is something that a lot of us lack, and I feel like that's one thing that reading books develops. That's another reason that I really love this habit. Now, I want to get into the practicalities of how I do it. With the baby, I haven't been reading a lot of physical books. Again, since I'm reading at nap time and stuff like that, we're often in a dark room when I'm reading, so I know this is bad for my eyes, but it's just been this year. I've been reading on my phone. I have a Kindle app on my phone, and I also have a subscription to Scribd, which I'm loving. I actually just started that. I think they advertise themselves as the Netflix of books, and they have like a wide amount of books and audiobooks and things like that. I also use Overdrive, which is an app that's linked up to my library, so that I can get ebooks that way. So I have a few different avenues that I get books from, so I'm not always paying for books. I do buy books on Kindle every now and then, but I don't usually, there's probably about half the books I consume I buy. Otherwise, I'm getting them through the library. But yeah, I've been reading on my phone. So no excuse, like you can read books on your phone. If you're standing in line at the grocery store, pull out your phone instead of like scrolling Instagram. One of the things that I've given up in the last several months that has afforded me more time to read, especially because in the last month I read 10 books because I'm trying to catch up to my to my 50, is I don't scroll Reddit anymore. And Reddit is such a time suck. Reddit has been like the one social media thing that I've just been like addicted to in the past. Probably spending an hour on Reddit a day isn't unusual. There's interesting things and sometimes there's good articles and stuff like that, but it's not worth it for me because at the end of the day, I'm not remembering a bunch of Reddit articles. Like maybe there's one or two things that, hey, that's kind of funny, but then it's such a surfacey reading experience that it just kind of disappears as soon as it arrived. So by trading Reddit for reading books, I feel like I just had like a way better month. And I feel like I've really expanded my horizons, and I managed to read, like in the last month I read the Red Queen series in its entirety, and just being able to immerse myself in fiction like that and get lost in a world, it felt so much more valuable to me than just kind of that like things like Reddit. And my husband will argue this with me too, but it's mental junk food as far as I'm concerned. And it's nice to have once in a while, but if that's all we're consuming all the time, then I don't know. I think that's worth looking at. I feel like I've gone in a few different directions, but I just wanted to sit down and talk to you guys about why I read 52 books a year and why that's a goal that I'm probably going to have for the rest of my life. It's one of my favorite goals, one of my favorite habits. It's not a goal anymore. It is a habit. I don't really feel like I have to strive for it. But the first year I did, it was a bit more of a challenge. The last thing I'm going to show you is I have the Goodreads app, and actually some of you probably have me on Goodreads. You can add me. I think it's just my maiden name, so Allysia Kearney. So the reason I really like Goodreads is this is a really fantastic app. It's widely used. There's excellent reviews for whatever book you want to learn. It's just a really nice looking app. I haven't updated it. I am at 30 books, but you can see that it gives you, here, let me see if it focuses. You can see that it gives you your progress report. You can make a goal at the beginning of the year for how many books you want to read. My goal is 52. You can see that I'm at 29. It's actually 30. So that's really cool. I like that. And you can like scroll through the books you've read and just see and then at the end of the year, they do this really nice little like image thing of all the books you've read, and I really like that. I feel like that helps keep me accountable. Even just adding a book and saying, I'm reading this on Goodreads is enough to like, okay, I'm actually gonna read this, so it doesn't sit on my virtual shelf for months at a time. And there's a good community too. Like I said, I have lots of people. Feel free to add me on Goodreads. I'm always up for, you know, making friends and stuff like that on it. So without Goodreads, I don't know that I would be holding myself accountable like this, but I really like that it keeps track of everything for me. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe I inspired you to read a book. If you think about it, like a lot of people I know don't read very much. It's like 1 or 2 books a year. What would your life be like if you were reading a book a week? I want you to think about that, and maybe that could be something fun to try as we head into the new year soonish. Anyway, I will catch you in the next video, guys.